We're holding in siman lamed aleph. Be'ezras Hashem al haGuela v'al Tmura, siman lamed aleph. And we're in the middle of a subject here. He's talking about the Gemara in Brachas Lamed Ches. The Gemara said that the bracha is hamoitzi, not moitzi. There's a shita that holds moitzi, but the Gemara paskins hamoitzi. And the reason why is because hamoitzi comes up in this pasuk in the velokakti es chemli li'am in Parshas Vayera. I will take you for a people to me. V'hayisi lochem elokim. I'll be your God. V'yadatem ki ani Hashem Elokechem. And then you will know. By Matan Torah, then you'll know retroactively, Ki ani Hashem Elokechem hamoitzi eschem mitachas tiglos Mitzrayim, that I was the one who brought you out from under the burdens of Mitzrayim. So how do we find out later? From the Nisim, he said there's no proof. Could be the Nisim were done with Kishuf. But how did we find out later? So he says in Torah, Shel Moshe Rabbeinu Harambam Zal. Not Moshe Rabbeinu from the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu is a play on words. Moshe Rabbeinu is the Rambam. Reb Moshe ben Maimon. Lomadnu, we learn, Shema she'amru zal, this that Chazal say in Brachas, Avidna l'chu milsa, I'll do something for you that you'll know l'mafreya that I was the one. What's that talking about? He al Kabbalah Torah, the acceptance of the Torah. The zealous shoynoi b'hilchas Yisodei Torah perek ches. This is the Rambam, 8th chapter of Yisodei Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu lo ya'aminu bo Yisrael mibnei ha'osos. So the Rambam's context there is he's talking about the idea of a Navi. In Perek Zayin, he describes what a Navi is. Navi is a great person who's a tzaddik and a Talmid Chacham, and then he proves that he's reached the level of Nevuah because he does an ois. He does something that proves him to be a Navi. He'll predict the future, and it will come true. He'll predict it again, it'll come true again, and he'll show that he's a Navi. So then he says, but Moshe Rabbeinu was not like every other Navi. Every other Navi is just because the Torah says in Parashat Shoftim that Kiyakum it says Navi akim lahem mikerav achehem kamoicha. Hashem promised that I'll bring other Nevi'im, and you'll listen. V'nosati devarai b'fiv. I'll put my words into his mouth, and you'll do what he says. And then it says V'chis toimar bil vavecha eicha neda asadavar. How are we going to know what's a true Navi and what's not? So then the Torah says, Asher yidaber Navi b'shem Hashem v'lo yiyadaber v'lo yavoy. If the Navi predicts something and it doesn't come true, then he's not really a Navi. But if it does come true, then he is really a Navi.
So you leave a davar cotton, even if it was like a small detail that went off.
Right, exactly. So that's how we know what a Navi is, but the Navi is only derived from the Torah. So then you have to ask, what's the Torah coming from? Moshe Rabbeinu is just a regular Navi, so then how is the Torah, what's that based on? You know what I mean? A Navi today is based because the Torah tells us to believe in him. But how are we supposed to believe in the Torah? So that's what he says. Moshe Rabbeinu is not a regular Navi. He has a different level. That's what he says. Moshe Rabbeinu lo ya'aminu bo Yisrael b'nei ha'osos. We didn't believe in Moshe just because he did some miracles or predicted the future. She'amar min al pi osos, yesh b'li bo doifi. If someone believes based on miracles, then there's still some doubt. It could be this miracle was done through the magical arts. So why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to do miracles? Why did he do Kriyas Yam Suf, let's say, right? It was only for the needs of the times. Not to bring proof for his prophecy. So the Rambam, he says, V'chulu, the Rambam really goes into detail. He says, Moshe needed to get across to the Yam Suf, so he split the Yam Suf. He needed to give them man, so he brought down the man. They were hungry, so they needed man. They needed water, so water came out of the rock. Everything he did was for the needs of the times. It wasn't because I'm proving myself to be a Navi through this nace. That was not the proof. Okay? So through what did they believe in him? What was the proof? The Maimon Har Sinai. By the giving of the Torah Har Sinai. She'einenu ra'u v'loizar. Our own eyes saw, no one else. V'yaznenu shamu, and our own ears heard. When Hashem spoke to Moshe, and he said, Moshe lech emor lahem, go and tell the Yidden. Uminayin shemayim Har Sinai levadoi hu araya l'nevuasoi. The Rambam says, how do we see that the giving of the Torah was the real proof to Moshe's nevuah? Shehu emes shein boy doifi shenemar ba'avur yishma ha'am bedabri imach v'gam b'cha yaminu l'olam. Hashem said to Moshe in Parshas Yisro, I'm going to come down and speak to you so that people should hear when I speak to you, and they'll believe in you forever. Miklal, you see from this, shekoidim zeh lo yhaminu boi. They didn't believe in him. Or you mean they didn't believe in him? Lo yhaminu boi ne'amanu shehi omedes la'olam. They didn't believe in him with a permanent belief. It says vayaminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdoi. It says they believed in Moshe, but and by Yamein Ha'am, it says they believed. In Mitzrayim already they believed. But it wasn't a permanent belief. It was a belief that could be shaken. Okay? It's a belief that had some room for afterthoughts. Ad kan l'shoinai. That's the Rambam. The Rambam establishes here a foundation principle of Yiddishkeit. We don't believe based on miracles alone. That a miracle could be done with kishuf. You never know. You never know how a person did a miracle. Even though they knew Moshe was a righteous man, he wasn't just some kind of magician. Even Paro was impressed by them. Why wasn't it enough just to do a sign and a wonder? And this is, you can explain what I said before, that there's a difference between Moshe and the other Nevi'im. The previous parak, not just anybody who comes and does a miracle is believed that he's a prophet. A person that we knew already was on the level of nevuah. That he had a lot of wisdom, and he has good deeds, that he's greater than anybody else similar to him. He was walking in the ways of nevuah. He was a holy person, a prishasa. He was separated from this worldly things. And then such a person does an amazing thing. He said, Hashem sent me. Then you have to listen to him. But it could be someone will do a miracle, even if he's great. Here's the part we want. He says, even if he's already a great man, and he's a big Talmud Chacham, and he's a Kaddish and a Parish, he could still do an ois, and he's not real. This miracle was done in some trickery, magic tricks. But still, mitzvah lishma, the Torah still tells you to listen to him. It's wrong. He says, since he has all the signs of nevuah, he checks all the boxes, we say, okay, probably he's good. He gives a mashal. He says it's like when we have a bezdin, and the bezdin judges a case, right? Maybe they kill someone for a sin they committed based on the testimony of two Adam. Okay? So he says, even though these Adam could have been saying false Adis, right? Could have been false, and you're killing an innocent man. So how could you do that? But since they're good Adam, and we think they're good, we have no records to show they're not good. We assume they're good. That's what the Torah means, that the secrets are to Hashem. Meaning, Hashem knows the secrets, we don't, so we just have to do what we're supposed to do based on the laws in the Torah. Do our best. We see with our eyes, and Hashem sees the insides, He sees the heart. We see from this, now I think this is the end of the quote of the Rambam now. So now the Rebbe says on this Rambam, that we see from this, even a real Navi, even a great person who is holy and everything, who rak mikoyach chazaka. It's only because we assume. It's not for sure. Ve'eno bira gomer, k'mavur bidvarav. Like the Rambam says, v'kiven she'yatziz Mitzrayim ha'yisoid v'ikar hu amuna. So since Yatziz Mitzrayim and the belief in the nisim that happened then are important, they're an important foundation of Amunah. So Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shahaya Sheyiyah, it's probably a typo, Sheyiyah Allah Bira Gomer. Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted there to be a complete proof that it's true. Al Yidei Matan Torah. K'mavur b'Rambam Perek Ches Milchus Yisrael Torah. He said, I'm going to give you a future sign. And this is the pasuk, by the way, in Parashat by the Sneh. When Moshe saw the burning bush, Hashem sent to him, and he said to him, this is the siman, this is the sign that I sent you. When you go out of Mitzrayim, when you bring the people out, Tavdun eso Elokim ala har hazeh. You're going to serve Hashem on this same mountain where you're standing now, where the burning bush was. And so the Rambam explains that this Matan Torah that's going to happen at the same place where the burning bush is, that thing is going to be the sign Sheyedu shani shlachticha, that they'll know that I sent you, that they'll know that Moshe originally was sent by Hashem. Be'emes, mitchila, v'lo yishar b'libam hirur, and they won't have any doubts. Okay, uke'ein shekostvu ha'toisves Masechta Yuma. Toisves says on the first daf, Yuma daf beis amid aleph, dibur maschva chachamim mo'imrim, mishum de kaparas kol Yisrael toliba lo yiratzu lismoich ala chazaka b'zeh. Ayin sham. Basically, the Gemara in Yuma says that before Yom Kippur, according to Rabbi Yehuda, they prepared an extra wife. The Kohen Gadol had to have a wife during the Avodah. So it says they prepared an extra wife in case his wife would die during the Yom Kippur, right? So
it doesn't end.
Right. Oh, so the Rabbanan said back to him, if so, there's no end to it. You're going to be choishish that one wife will die, maybe two wives will die, three wives will die. So Elamai, don't be worried about this, right? That's what they said. So in Tosfos he explains that really we're not choishish even for one wife dying in such a short time. In a long time maybe we are, but in a short time we're not. Very unlikely. But he says once Kol Yisrael, the whole kapara of the whole Klal Yisrael depends on this Kohen Gadol being able to do the Avodah. If he doesn't do it, we're all messed up, right? So because of that, we're very machmir. We're very worried about even one wife dying. So the Chacham said to Rabbi Yehuda, if so, then you should be worried even about two. Meaning, you should be worried about two. Elamai, you can't, because how many wives are you going to prepare for him? Elamai, just drop the whole subject. But the point is, that's the idea. If something's very, very serious, then you go all out for it. So, the idea here is too, the whole emunah of the Jewish people depends on Yetzias Mitzrayim. So if you're going to say Yetzias Mitzrayim might have been a magic trick, might have been kishuf, then it messes everything up. So Hashem had to show Moshe Rabbeinu L'mafreya, he had to give him a sign at Har Sinai to show everybody that he's the one that was sent by him. Okay, next paragraph. Umimasha Kosev Rambam b'Perek Zayin Hanal Dezeh Ha'ois Efshar Sheyesh Dvarim Begav. The Rambam says that it could be that this sign that was done by a Navi was a false sign, right? And he says, Yesh, the lashon of the Rambam is Yesh Dvarim Begav. There are some things in it, meaning it's not what it seems to be. But he's medayik. V'loy kosev shehu lot v'kishuf k'masha kosev b'Perek Ches. The Rambam doesn't say the same language that he uses in Perek Ches. In Perek Ches he says maybe the nace was done with kishuf, with witchcraft. And in Perek Zayin, he mentions the same thing. He's talking about the Navi, and he says maybe the ois of the Navi was done in some Dvarim Begav. Interesting lashon, Dvarim Begav. So what's the pshat? So he says, Nira, Shebe'emes yeshnam nisim mi'asamich mem b'loy lot v'kishuf. It could be sometimes the Satan will do a nace without using kishuf. How will the Satan do a nace without using kishuf? He says, V'kamoy shahaya b'nachash ha'kamoyni. By the case of the snake in Gan Eden. The Sham bar l'chol adeis haya hanes hahu al yidei koyach hasamach mem. The fact that the snake was able to talk, the Rebbe discussed earlier, how could the snake talk and say things to Chava and make sense, right? How is it possible? Everyone agrees that the snake was talking because of the koyach of the samach mem. The adayin lo hayu mechashvim b'olam. There were no witches in the world at that time. Umi limdoi l'nachash ha'kanmoini ma'aseh kshafim. How did the nachash learn how to do kishuf? Obviously not, right? Obviously it wasn't kishuf. It was the samach mem. V'alkorch shahayal yidei samach mem. V'chein mashma pirkei der belezer hanal. Pirkei der belezer that he quoted the God of the snake. V'chein matzinu eitzel ioiv She'asa samach mem ma'aseh nisim. Eov, the Rebbe mentioned in the Hakdama that he had a nace that it says, I think, in the Gemara it says in Chulin that his gallbladder, I think, was leaking and leaked onto the ground, and that naturally speaking, Eov should have died. Eov was, Hashem sent the Satan and he gave him license to make Eov suffer without killing him. And this is one of the ways that the Satan made him suffer. And he made him suffer in such a way that naturally speaking, he should have died. So how is that possible? He says, "V'lo yalidei kishiv." It was a real nace done by the Samach Mem, not kishiv. U'kedanir me'lashon chazal b'maseches avodas zara sham. The maseches avodas zara sham on Daf Nun Hey, where Chazal say that the Samach Mem sometimes does nisim to bring rain or to heal somebody from a sickness, and that's not considered kishiv. The lashon of Chazal doesn't sound like the Samach Mem is acting through kishiv, but rather it's a koyach of nes that the Samach Mem has in order to cause someone to stumble into sin. So here too, in Eov's case, where it says the Samach Mem was the one doing it, so obviously it can't be kishiv. You see this happen not through witchcraft, but happened through the Samach Mem. To cause the people to make a mistake. The same story that he brought Sefer Chassidim, I think this was in Chaf Hey, that he brought, that the Sefer Chassidim says people make this superstitious thing. They say if you spill water onto the fire, then the guest is going to fall into the water. He says, he says the Satan makes the guest fall into the fire to make people think that the superstition is real. That wasn't kishiv. Nobody did kishiv there. No, kishiv is something a person has to do. Satan doesn't do kishiv. It sounds like it's something people do. So either the guest would make kishiv to make himself fall into the water, which is obviously not true, or the guy with the candle, putting out the candle with the water, is also doing kishiv. Obviously also not true. Elamai, the Samach Mem, the Satan did the kishiv, did the nace without the aid of kishiv. So he's saying that's what the Rambam means when he says that an ois could happen through Dovar and Begav. He means the Satan will do it. Okay, last paragraph. The cost of a Seder Adoyres, Aleph, Tuf, Kuf, Ayin, Gimel. Seder Adoyres is a sefer that goes through chronology of the world and tells the history of what happened in each year. So Aleph, Rabbi Chiel Halpern, about 400 years ago. So he says on his entry for the year 1973. 1973. So what happened in 1973? So he says, "B'anshe Dor Haflaga," the story of the Dor Haflaga, the story of the generation that built the tower. Shezarku chitzim el hashamayim. They wanted to go up and fight with Hashem, so it says they shot arrows up at the sky to like shoot at Hashem. Vayiplu kol hachitzim aleim maleim dam. And the arrows came down with blood on them. When they saw it, we killed all of the gods in Shemaim. That Hashem made it happen in order to confuse them. We see this didn't happen through witchcraft either. And it didn't happen by Hashem either. It didn't happen from the side of holiness. Hashem doesn't give people these kind of trials. It's that the Hashem gave permission to the Satan to do these miracles to cause the people to stumble. Famous Gemara in Gittin, more of the story of the Churban Beis Hamikdash. It says, "Betitus Rasha, Titus, the Roman general, Natal Sayef, the Gider as the Paroiches. He stuck his sword into the Paroiches in the Holy of Holies. V'nas the Nes v'haya dam mevatzfetz. v'yoytze. The blood was coming out. Ukesaver haragas atzmoi. He thought he killed himself, which is a kinoi to Hashem. It's the same thing. The Satan could do a nace to cause someone to think that he's right, even though he's a rasha. V'ayin masha kosv v'toisv sham dir maslu v'nas nace. Tosfos says something over there. Let's take a look. Yeah, so Tosfos says v'nas nace v'hayadam l'hoidia de kasha lifnei hamakam churban beis hamikdash. There wasn't dam to make Titus think that he was right. The dam was coming out because he wanted to show that it was difficult for Hashem to see the destruction of the temple. So it's a different shot. So the Rebbe is just pointing out that Tosfos says differently from him. Aval yesh l'chalik, but it could be that you could distinguish between that case and our case. V'ein laharich b'zeh. But we can't go on in length, ki al kaponim motzinu in yanim ko'ela, because we at least find many other places, har be'ein mispar, without number, many places where you see that the Samech Mem could do nisim. And we're going to stop here. At the end of Lamed Aleph, what we learned over here was that he said, he brought a raya that there's such a thing as nisim that are done by the Samech Mem from the Gemara in Gittin, that Titus stuck his sword into the Paroiches and Dam was coming out. So I just wanted to show you that in the Sefer Divrei Yoel Michtavim, they have here a letter printed that the Rebbe wrote in 1948. So this many years before the haGuela, where he says the exact same thing. Just look on the second page of the letter. This is the beginning of it. The second page of the letter, in this paragraph over here. It's really in the Sefer, it's the third page of the letter, page Peites. Paragraph starts, B'avaneseinu Rabim. B'avaneseinu Rabim Iskayim B'mloi Muvan Hamila. He's writing this in, it says, Aleph Nisan, Erev Rosh Chodesh Nisan Tafshin Ches. So, it's about a month and a half before the Hakamas to Medina. Maimer HaKasuv Ki Yakum B'kir B'cha Oy Choleim Chaloim. This is in the first line here, that when there arises among you a prophet, false prophet for Avodah Zarah, and he gives you a sign. And the sign that he gives you comes true. He gives you a nace that happens, and people think he's really a true Navi. And it says, don't listen to him. Hashem is testing you. So, V'yamru Chazal. So this is an example of a false prophet doing a nace. And he says, V'yamru Chazal, I'll give you an example of a false nace. A nace from the Satan. Gittin daf nun vavam and base. Mititus shenatal sayef v'gider es ha-paroiches. He took his sword and he ripped the paroiches. V'nas tenes v'haya dam mevatzvitz v'yoytze. The blood was coming out. Ukesaver haragas atzmoi. Titus thought he conquered Hashem. Shenemar shagu, it says in the pasuk in Tehillim, shagu tzorerecha b'kerev moyadecha.
And it says Ei Eloheinu suchasoyu.
What?
This is Ei Eloheinu suchasoyu. He quoted the pasuk.
That was in Hazinu, right?
Yeah, but that's what he quoted when
Amar Ei Eloheinu suchasoyu.
Yeah, but it's also in Gittin.
Gittin. Oh, good. But the Gemara in Gittin also.
You know when he thrust it into the parochos, he asked Ei Eloheinu suchasoyu.
But also, the Gemara in Gittin quotes this pasuk: "Shagu tzarerecha b'kerev moyadecha." Your enemies roared in the midst of your holy place. Samu oisoisam oisois. They made their signs into signs. Pirish Rashi's al amru shesimonei siman. They said that their siman is a siman. This fact that the paroiches had dam is a siman. He said, "Dam zeh shel mihu." Whose blood is this? Im loy shaharagnu esatzmoi. Unless we conquered Hashem. Kidrei klapim rala. Now, another place I have in the Rebbe's biography that he explained this Gemara differently. He said, where did the blood come from that was in the paroiches? It came from all the korbanos. Whenever the Kohen Gadol went into the Beis Hamikdash on Yom Kippur, he used to spritz dam onto the paroiches. And those tipas of dam used to get absorbed into the paroiches. And they were held there for all these years until the Churban. When the Churban came, and they destroyed it, then it all came out. So, but anyway, but the point is, why did this happen now? Because as a nace to trip him up, to make him think that he was right. Hinei nasa nes latitis. This Russia, he had a miracle happen to him. Why? So that he could insult Hashem. So he says, Hashem doesn't do miracles for nothing. Why did he do a miracle this way? It's only in order to help him insult Hashem. The answer is, anyone who comes to be matame himself, Hashem will help him. He'll give him a door to go in and be matame himself. That now, before the time of Mashiach, the door has been opened very wide. That the inclination towards heresy is stronger than the inclination to avoid Zarah that existed bisman by Rishon. Terem shebitlu Anshe Knesset Agdola. Before the men of the Anshe Knesset Agdola took away the Yetzer Hara of avoid Zarah. Ein lanu al mili shine ela avinu shebashamayim. We have no one to rely upon except our Father in heaven. Now, the rest of this michtav is very interesting. I wanted to maybe read it because he goes through a lot of the foundations of Vayol Moshe and haGuela. In this one letter, written interestingly 20 years before the haGuela came out, he goes through everything. The letter is, by the way, written to his Kehillah. The rebbe had a shul in Yerushalayim called Oil Rachel, Beis Medrash Oil Rachel, and he wrote this to them to give them chizuk at this time.